Hello students, welcome back to your class. Hope you are feeling fresh and energetic after the break. Now we are almost used to this different method of teaching and learning process, isn't it? Let us start again. From the last chapter we recall that all living organisms are made of cells. In unicellular organisms, a single cell performs all basic functions. For example, in amoeba, which is a unicellular organism, a single cell carries out movement, intake of food and respiratory gases, respiration and excretion. But in multicellular organisms, there are millions of cells. Most of these cells are specialized to carry out a few functions. Each specialized function is taken up by a different group of cells. Since these cells carry out only a particular function, they do it very efficiently. In human beings, muscle cells contract and relax to cause movement. That means muscle cells help in movement of body parts. Nerve cells carry messages. Blood flows to transport oxygen, food, hormones and waste material, and so on. In plants, vascular tissues conduct food and water from one part of the plant to other parts. You learnt about this in class 7, conducting tissue or vascular tissue, xylem and phloem, which carries water and minerals and prepared food. So multicellular organisms show division of labor. Cells specializing one function are often grouped together in the body. This means that a particular function is carried out by a cluster of cells at a definite place in the body. So, a particular function is carried out by a cluster of cells. A cluster of cells at a definite place in the body. This cluster of cells called a tissue is arranged and designed so as to give highest possible efficiency of a function. So that is, it is arranged and designed in such a way so that it can give highest possible efficiency of function. So this cluster of cells which are called the tissue. Blood, phloem and muscle cells are examples of tissues. A group of cells that are similar in structure and or work together to achieve a particular function forms a tissue. So, tissue is a group of cells similar in structure and function. So, today we have started the chapter tissue. Chapter 6, we have started chapter 6 tissues. Are plants and animals made of same types of tissues? When we discussed the cell fundamental unit of life, that is cell, we saw that is there are some differences between a plant cell and an animal cell. So if the cell organelles which are specified for a particular function to do, certainly the way of working also will be different. Let us see. There are noticeable differences between the two. Plants are stationary or fixed. So the plants are fixed in a place. These are stationary. They do not move. Most of the tissues they have are supportive. So as they do not move, so most of the tissues which are supportive, which provides them with structural strength. Most of these tissues are dead. The tissues which is providing the structural strength, these are dead. Since dead cells can provide mechanical strength as easily as live ones. So, though they are dead, they can provide the mechanical strength as easily as the live ones. And they need less maintenance. They need less maintenance. Animals, on the other hand, move around. Animals move from place to place. And why do they move from place to place? In search of food, mates and shelter. They consume, so they move from place to place and they consume more energy as compared to plants. Most of the tissues they contain are living. So the differences you get: plants are fixed, animals move from place to place. Plants tissue, most of these which are dead; animal tissue, most of these which are living. And they animals also consume more energy as compared to plants. Another difference between animals and plants is in the pattern of growth. There is a difference between the plant and animal in the pattern of growth. The growth in plants is limited to certain regions. It is limited to certain regions. While this is not so in animals. There are some tissues in plants that divide throughout their life. So there are some tissues in plants which divide throughout their life. These tissues are localized in certain regions. That means these are restricted to certain regions. Based on the dividing capacity of the tissues, various plant tissues can be classified as growing or meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. So the plant tissues can be divided into two types: growing or meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. That is on the basis of their dividing capacity. So plant tissues are of two main types, meristematic and permanent. Cell growth in animal is more uniform. Cell growth in an animal, that means these are not localized or restricted to certain regions as the plant tissues are. So there is no such demarcation of dividing and non-dividing regions in animals. The structural organization of organs and organ system is far more specialized and localized in complex animals than even in complex plants. This fundamental difference reflects in different modes of life pursued by these two major groups of organisms, particularly in their different feeding methods. Also, they are differently adapted for a sedentary existence on one hand and active locomotion on the other. Contributing to this difference in organ system design. So as the plant, they are able to make their own food. They show autotrophic mode of nutrition, and they are fixed in one place. They get the raw materials from the environment and they can make their own food. Whereas animals, they show heterotrophic mode of nutrition, and in search of food they have to move from place to place. So the body design is also as such, so that it helps them to carry out these different functions. It is with reference to this complex animal and plant bodies that we will now talk about the concept of tissues in some details. So now we will be discussing about the plant and animal tissue. So plant tissue, we learned that is these are of two types, meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Meristematic tissue is the dividing tissue present in the growing regions of the plant. Permanent tissues are derived from meristematic tissue once they lose their ability to divide. They are classified as simple and complex tissue. Let us see, that is, the growth of the plants occur only in certain specific regions. This is because the dividing tissue, also known as meristematic tissue, is located only at these points. Depending on the region where they are present, meristematic tissue are classified as apical, intercalary and lateral. New cells produced by meristem are initially like those of meristem itself, but as they grow and mature, their characteristics slowly change and they become differentiated as components of other tissue. So the position where these are situated, on the basis of that, these are of three types. One is apical at the apex or the tip region, maybe the root tip or the shoot tip. Intercalary, that is near the leaves, and lateral, that is on the sides. Apical meristem is present at the growing tips of stems and roots and increases the length of the stem and root. So these are present at the tips of stems and roots and increases the length of this stem and root. The girth of the stem or root increases due to lateral meristem. Lateral, that is on the sides which are situated. So these are lateral meristem, and it increases the girth of the stem or root. Intercalary meristem is the meristem at the base of the leaves or internodes. So it is at the base of the leaves or the internodes. So this is intercalary. on the either side of the node on twigs. So the plant tissues broadly, which can be divided into two types, the meristematic and permanent. Meristematic on the basis of their position where these are localized. These are of three types: tip region, apical, sides, lateral, and near the leaves or the nodes, these are intercalary. So there are three types of meristematic tissues: apical, lateral, and intercalary. Permanent tissues are of two types: simple and complex. So permanent tissue, these are of two types: simple and complex. Simple, there are three types of simple permanent tissue: parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Complex permanent tissue are of two types: xylem and phloem, which you have learned this in class 7. So the tissue, it is a group of cells similar in structure and function. Plant tissues are of two main types: meristematic and permanent. Meristematic tissue is the dividing tissue present in the growing regions of the plant. Permanent tissues are derived from meristematic tissue once they lose their ability to divide. They are classified as simple and complex tissues. Parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma are three types of simple tissues. Xylem and phloem are types of complex tissues. So next day we will start permanent tissues in plants. Thank you, children.